born in Hobart, lived in Kingston then just after that, and then I moved to Ouse as a farmer, then I moved to Eagle Hawk Neck in '83, that's 30 odd years ago, as a fisherman. I came from Scotland in about 1860, bought a sawmill and were fishermen. And I've been attracted to the sea by my grandfather, part in the sea and fishing. My uncle was a cray fisherman, commercial cray fisherman for 40 years, mainly fished in Cox's Bight. And I used to love the sea, love the boats. And any chance I got, I'd go out there, and I've always had that attraction. So in '83, I bought myself a 40-foot runabout and put a commercial rock lobster licence on it and went fishing. The industry, the rock lobster I'm talking about, was about to wane, and I'd had some really good years and I was sort of a late comer into the industry, but even then, it was good. You could make a really good life, and it was exceptionally good compared to a dairy farm, which you could hardly make a living, and it was long hours on a boat. It was fantastic. And you can make so much money sitting in a seat telling someone to do something just behind you. So it was a huge lifestyle change for me. And my wife needed a lifestyle change too, from the country, and we've always loved the sea. The scenery to start with, on the southeast coast, out of Eagle Hawk Neck, was absolutely spectacular. It was just a beautiful place. And to make a living out was hugely satisfying. To be, a tourist virtually, working in such a wonderful area. So you can't go ask for much better than that. And there were plenty of fish. There were plenty of fish then. And you could make a good living. The commercial cray season in those days opened on the 1st of November. So we were off on the 1st November, and we fished right through to I think about February, and then we tried, and it was easy. You could catch, it was very satisfying. You didn't pull many empty pots, and the pots, when you did pull them, they'd be half full of rats, small fish, undersized fish. So the future looked good, and it was very satisfying. That you could make a good living in those few months. So then we'd diversify into running our boats for tuna charters, which was a bit rough because the fishermen were a little bit on the grog. Anyway, we got out of that, and then we went trevally fishing and diversified. The trevally fishing was run by the state, and I think we fished for trevally under our cray licence in those days. And so the trevally were good. There was plenty of trevally around, and then for a change we'd probably catch a few striped trumpeter. I remember one day we at 9:30 we'd put about a tonne of trevally on board by 9:30 in the morning, and just to spend the rest of the day we called in to a patch where we could catch some striped trumpeter, and so we took about 100 striped trumpeter as well. So there were a lot of fish around those days, and we didn't use automatic gear. I mean, we had to catch them with hand lines and pull them up by hand out of 80-90 fathoms of water. Very difficult, very hard on the hands. couldn't wear gloves because she couldn't grip the line. And so life was really good. And you know, you'd have a good day like that and you could have a week off. So what more could you ask for? I don't fish anymore. I'm sick of trying to go out and catch one. Last year I spent about 5 trips out with a chap that owned a big runabout. I didn't get a feed. So that was very disappointing. So I've given it up. I don't bother, but I sold my licence to my son, Ben, and he's finding it rather difficult to make a living. The quota's been cut back by 27%. The government have increased the costs. Diesel's gone through the roof. And I don't know really, it's simply not a sustainable way anymore. I feel it'll end up in a corporate sector with a few boats being owned by a few to make it sort of pay. I think the recreational footprint needs to be checked and looked at seriously to see what footprint there is, because there is no paperwork on what the footprint is. And there's last time I checked, there was about 44,000 recreational licences issued. The boats are much bigger and more sophisticated, more so than a lot of commercial boats. So they range far and wide, anywhere they like. There's no restrictions on them. And so between the commercial and the recreational there's high competition for the same resource, and I believe that resource is dwindling. It's not sustainable unless they create some sort of sectional areas along the coastlines of marine parks. I think that's the only answer, because for the minister to try and reduce I can't say he can reduce the numbers of participants in the fisheries, but he can reduce the impact by quotas or tags for the recreationals. And at the moment he's refusing to do that. So therefore the commercial sector's got to bear the brunt. And simply it's not sustainable. The fish are not there. You can look over the side once and you'd see the fish crawling around. You won't see fish crawling around now, even if you're over the water. And so we left the southeast coast and we went to the west coast, probably about 10 years ago, to try and make ends meet. And around there, it was absolutely magic. There were fish everywhere. You'd go around with a dinghy, and the fish would come out of the water to get at the bait if you tried with a bait on a string. The fish would climb up the rocks to get at it. And they were everywhere. And the last trip I went around there, I couldn't find one. You couldn't see them like that. And the management's just simply not sustainable. In the early days, when I first started, the pots, crayfish pots, would come up, probably half full. And you know, you'd probably get a couple of fish out of a half full pot. But they were there. And next year's fish were there too. And the year after's fish were there. They were there from rats up to size fish. The last few times I've been out in the neck, around that area, you're just pulling up empty pots, nothing in them. I know there's escape gaps in the pots now, but if you pull them up very early in the morning, they're not worried about getting out of the pot until it gets light. So, and in the old days, you know, they would, the small ones would go out through the sticks and that anyway. but they were always in there then, but now they're not. And so I don't know whether the fish are popular now, but in those days, in the early days of my experience, there was a proliferation of crayfish. And I also, as caught trevally, there was a proliferation of trevally. You could go down in my small boat and put a ton of trevally on deck in a day. Absolutely fantastic. You could go and catch 100 striped trumpeter in a day with no problems, 500–600 kilos, big fish. Now the striped trumpeter, which are closer to the shore than the trevally, the size of those fish, probably 5 kilo fish, have gone down to 2.5. Only half the size, but at least the small fish are there. If the small fish weren't there, they'd be in real trouble. But the trevally did the same too. They went down smaller and you didn't seem to be getting the big fish. But well, the last few trips trevally, I didn't catch any, not a trevally. I think the pressure on the trevally fishery, which was an integral part of our business, to give the crays a rest. We used to go do something else, charter, we got rid of that. But to go and catch trevally and stripies, while we're doing that, we left the crayfish alone. And now, I think probably, I'd say there's a decline of 60 to 70% in fishing pots, and it's huge. Well, you know, a pot half full and a pot empty is 100%. And that is not uncommon. You'll get patches of fish, maybe they're just moving that little patch, something's got them excited, and they run. But we use 50 pots now, where once I used to use 19. And I'm not catching as much with 50 pots as I was catching with 19 pots. The last year I was on my original boat, the Hangover, 40-footer, we caught, in our short 4 months, we caught 6.5 tonnes of crayfish just out of Lake and Hawk Neck and up and down the coast, probably to Tasmania, Hawk Neck, Tasmania. We couldn't catch that now with 50 pots. And we'd be lucky to catch that even if we went around the coast. So the management's not sustainable. Very disappointed. That was a very exciting time when my son took over fishing, and you know, he settled down. He's got 3 young boys, and one of those boys, the oldest one, is absolutely mad about going fishing. He wants to do it. He's not going to be able to, because he's not going to be there. I reckon 10 years and my son won't be fishing. He can't afford to. When I started fishing, I don't know, diesel was probably about 30 cents a litre. Now we're paying $1.40 a litre. We've got to go further. We're using twice as much diesel. It's not sustainable from any viewpoint, really. And I feel very unhappy about it and disappointed that my son and his sons, well, his sons definitely won't ever get there. I don't believe it. And I reckon Ben, he might last another 5–10 years. I don't reckon he'll see 10. It's just not economic. Just saying, send it to, on a coalface perspective, my coalface perspective on recreational fishing, because my father was a crazy recreational fisherman, and so was I before I became a commercial fisherman. And I loved it, and I still do, but there's nothing there to catch. I can't catch anything anyway, probably old age, but anyway. I've thought about it long and hard. You just cannot get the message through, you cannot get the history message through to the managers. They don't want to know about it. They don't want to listen to me, and they rejected my 10-page essay I sent to all the pollies in the department, and don't have a lot of faith in the managers. And the manager's track record is not good. The track record is there in writing, in records. The history is important. That when a new fisherman goes on a boat to catch fish, nowadays, he sees it as it is. He doesn't understand the way it is now and the way it was. If he knew the way it was 20 years ago, he would be saying, shit, something's happened here and it's got to stop. But you can't get this message across. They think the status quo is the way it is. The status quo wasn't that way. It was far more better. It was far better. But without that being discussed and recognised, they've got no benchmark to gauge what now is. And now is not sustainable compared to what it was. So the management is not working if the biomasses of all fisheries are being reduced to a critical level. And I believe they are a critical level. So you can't convince the managers of this, and this is my point of view, and there's a lot of people got the same point of view, and it's there. I mean, the proof is there. If they will look at it, it's there. But they turn a blind eye to it. So I find it frustrating to try and get the message across. Well, as the pressure on the inshore fish, and I mean, the absolutely remarkable change in the crays. I mainly know, we've got a history of crays. There's a bloke called Jack Collett, and I got friendly with Jack when I first went to the neck. He was running a charter boat then, but he used to be a crayfisherman. He used to catch sack bags of crayfish in the dinghy only about a quarter of a mile from the jetty. Now, you'd be very lucky to catch anything there anymore. Now and then they do accidentally catch one there. But the difference on the shore, around the shore, is so accessible to everyone in little dinghies and whatever. You know, fast, became unsustainable there, and for us it wasn't economical to try and fish on the rocks. So we started to move offshore, and we did move offshore, and the water's pretty deep around between Eagle Hawk Neck and Tasmania. You know, offshore, a couple hundred yards offshore, you had 10-15 fathoms water. But then we found the same pressure moved out and we had to keep moving out. So we moved out to the edges around the reefs and the shoreline, which is in about 20 to 30 fathoms. And slowly we found, we couldn't make a living there either. So then we targeted offshore reefs for crayfish. And at the same time we'd set a few pots on the reef and we'd catch some striped salmon on that reef as well. So it was still economical for us to do that. Then the trawlers got a bit busy and they started coming in and they would target the reefs too. And a trawler is quite capable of breaking up a small reef And on occasions we did document and find reefs that we had fished that were scattered, the rocks were scattered and were non-productive anymore. And so I think probably a huge impact on the fisheries outside of recreational and inshore small fisheries has been the trawlers offshore. So then we had a conflict. The trawlers were working in, we were working out, and then we're suddenly in conflict. And the trawlers that were trawling the bottom were devastating the environment. So that didn't help matters either. And I believe, if I may mention, Syro have got some very good footage on that. And it was got by a trawler. And I was sworn to secrecy when I was sort of trying to be involved in management. And I saw that footage, and it was humongous. It was really dreadful. I remember the highlight of the whole footage. There was one little rock on the bottom, and there was a ling wrapped around the rock, and a couple of tufts of weed. That's all I saw. The rest of it was just sand. And that would have been a very productive area once. Now, that's not sustainable. It's absolutely madness. Trawlers all over the world. It's been documented, well documented, hugely documented. The fisheries have fallen over because of over-trawling. And so AFCA have tried to control this. But when you catch something that you're not allowed to have, what do you do with it? And so you don't have it, you kill it, you bring it on board and pick it up and throw it back over. There's no record of that destruction because it doesn't happen, because they don't know what to do about it. And what can you do about it? Trawling is an awful way, the most efficient way to wreck any fishery really, and I don't know how to control it. They haven't been able to control it. All those don't come in for us, we go broke. Our families starve. What are they going to do? You know, my son is a fully fledged fisherman. If he goes out of business tomorrow, what could he do? Well, what job's he going to get to sustain his lifestyle now? He's got a right to have that lifestyle and have it protected.